that department within the city that wasn't involved this year. So round of applause to all the city employees that got involved, that were out there. Fire and police from the very beginning. We are looking at the drone show, we're looking at the fireworks, we're looking at layouts, we're looking at permitting. So planning and permitting. Parks and Rec is out there. You have Cruz who's digging a trench for the 8-inch mortars. So each one of those booms that you're like, you felt, Cruz was behind that because he dug the trench, okay, for that. The park, it looking just fantastic every day, day in and day out. He says, I love my parks. That's Adam. Okay, thank you, Adam. That's Elmer Thomas. He puts it in and day out to make sure things are taken care of. Making sure that everyone gets paid, that's the people over here. That is Susan and Brandy. They're helping out, making sure that all the invoices, that the balance, the budget balances, and when it doesn't balance, how do we get out of that? That's them. Deanna Deere with GIS. The maps that we get, starting that very first year, 3 years ago, went to GIS and said, hey, we got these maps, they're drawn, they're okay, can you help us? And they're like, oh yeah, we have all the software. And not only do they create the maps, but interactive maps that show the restaurants or that show the food trucks and their menus and our sponsors. So thank you so much. And of course, like I said, my staff, they have to put up with me when I say, hey, you know what? By the way, we're going to do this too. And they go, wait, what? That's tomorrow. And we go, yeah, let's try it out. Let's see what happens. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If we advertise it, we're going to make it happen. If we don't advertise it, which there were some things that didn't happen this year, but no one knows, just us. But those are things that are going to happen next year. But you know, Nick running the Derby car races, Haley, the promo that was coming out of our office, the press releases, she always does an amazing job. Reagan handling over 50 different vendors. So yeah, and just all of it going just through her. Terry and Stavis, who's his job is our basically house manager. But when it comes to a festival, he takes on all the different hats. When, you know, making sure the trash is picked up, making sure that there's ice at the different stages. He makes that happen. And then Terry, his first year, this was his first ever Freedom Festival. Some of the staff, we were taking bets if he's going to be there or not after the festival. And he's still with us, so we were so happy. And then Andrea, who is my right hand, sometimes my left hand too, making sure that everything actually happens the way that we want it to happen. And she's the what if. When I say, hey, we're going to do this. And she helps me to think through those ideas to make sure that they happen. And if I say we're going to do it, and even though she questions it, she goes, okay, we're going to make it happen, and she gets behind me. And I'm always supportive and thankful for Andrea and her services. The other thing is, of course, City Council. I came before you several months ago asking for a pretty large sum of money for a drone show that I didn't have a lot to show at that time. That drone show company, Sky Elements, went on to America's Got Talent. They came to Lawton, and we got to see the results. And so thank you for City Council and your support. And then, of course, City Management being able to open up to overtime volunteers, which actually made this festival work. We wouldn't have been able to do it this year if we didn't have all of the different departments coming together. So thank you so much for that. All right, thank you.
So I want to comment on that just a minute, because I think it was a great example of a community, how coordinated the community had to be to make that happen, and certainly through the obligation of funds through the City Council, but it's the staff and all the volunteers that make it happen. And it's just such a great example of collaboration between all of the departments. And here's what it says in our vision statement: we exist solely to serve the citizen. We seek to efficiently provide the opportunity for our citizens and visitors to thrive. We do that every day, but this was kind of a showcase of an event of what we do. And so it's very much appreciated and very awesome. I think we even partnered with the Chamber on a lot of that. And so it's just a great example of a community coordination. But I don't want to get lost in the fact that we have staff that does this every day in the parks. That's what their whole job is. And the arts and humanities is a great example of working to provide more low-cost, no-cost family activities. So I think this is a big deal, and I think we ought to give all of these guys that were here another round of applause. And I'm going to tell you, when I walked in the room and I saw all these employees sitting back here, I thought, oh man, John's made them all mad about something. But I'm glad they were all here to be appreciated. So, Jason, did you want to say?
There we go. And I'd also be remiss, I was looking over this direction, our Fort Sill rep isn't here, but Fort Sill coming out, they had the horses out there, they had the dogs out there, they had the static display out there, and they had a number of volunteers. And so Fort Sill, like I said, this is Lawton Fort Sill Freedom Festival, and I'd be remiss, and I needed to come up to make sure that they get mentioned.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you. I'm glad you said that. Now we're going to move on to the reports by the Mayor and City Council. We'll start with Ward 1.
You know, I noticed this morning as I was coming in that there's we're doing better on the trash along the yards and that sort of thing, but there were several trash carts put out that weren't bagged. The trash was not bagged, and when it's not bagged, it's going to fly. So I want to remind the citizens about that, to be sure and bag your trash.
Okay, thank you. Ward 2.
Yeah, I got a couple of people I wanted to say some nice things about. Everybody, and virtually that's every department in the city, worked on Freedom Fest. And it was unbelievably good. The drone show was incredible. The fireworks show was incredible. The food was incredible. Thank you to your team. Jason, thank you for all the work, all the fun that we had. I appreciate that. And then I just wanted to say welcome to our new city attorney, because he's hit the ground running and he's already showed up at several meetings. He's given me some incredible advice and started to work on some good stuff. And then to our city manager, who just stepped down, who has also done incredible work since he's been in. This city's really coming together, and we're really starting to get a lot of good things done, and it's really fun to be up here and be a part of it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And Ward 3.
I want to, in the Meadowbrook area, I want to thank the Parks Department. The Fred Bentley Park is getting brand new playground equipment, and I know the residents have been looking forward to that very, very quickly. So thank you, Parks Department.
4.
To bring you up to date on Mayor Booker's 10 wins for the city of Lawton citizens, it's become 40. As we've discussed, we're fixing to start the last phase of the 40 wins for the citizens of Lawton. In about 2 or 3, 4 weeks from now, we'll be on the last phase. So we're starting on putting new roads and streets together. So if you haven't had a new street put in your area, hopefully it will be before the end of the year. We're going to have all these done before Thanksgiving, and we're ahead of schedule. I know people aren't used to hearing that, but we are ahead of schedule. So it's really going good, and it's been a really accepted and well-used product. And on a second note, I know we've had a lot to talk about the Freedom Fest, and it was really great, but I want to give the band, the Fort Sill Band, a heads up. If you miss that celebration in the park, you really missed something, and that band was so good that I even thought about re-upping. But I changed my mind.
All right, thank you. Mr. Uyghur.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, wonderful Freedom Fest. I hope you were able to attend. One of the things also I would like to recognize is Mr. Rusty with our Public Utilities Department. We had a water main that busted on Cash Road and drained a water tower, kind of slowed things down out in the industrial park. But him and his team within a week had that thing fixed, up and running, and everything's moving in both directions. So, Mr. Rusty, thank you so much for your department and your leadership skill there.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to announce this coming Saturday, July the 13th, 07, going back to my military, 7 a.m. We will be painting our first home in the Lawton View area. Just want to thank the individuals ahead of time at CASA. That's through the organization with Mrs. Brenda Spencer-Ragland, Lawton View volunteers, and other Ward 7 volunteers, and then some other people from some other wards that's coming to help also. If you want your home painted in the Lawton View area, you can contact me through email, via email ward7@lawtonok.gov, or either 580-991-8257, or also Ms. Zadie Smith at 405-924-8654. And also, yesterday I had an opportunity to attend a poverty simulation, and it talks about the different types of poverty that some individual may be in. And we had a little sheet, and it just told the amount that you had to pay for your rent, for your cell phones. Well, anyway, the little group that I was in, we eventually got evicted, and I was like, and I was just sitting there, and she said, "You're evicted." I said, "Evicted?" And so the first thing that came to my mind, I said, I've never been evicted in my whole life, and my mother didn't let us get evicted. But what I'm saying, that it was a reality, and it was like, oh my gosh. But I'm saying that to say, this is the reason why I'm giving back to the community, and we have other good people that's giving back to the community. And I just want to say thank you so much for what you do right here in Lawton Fort Sill area. Also, I'd like to thank the Parks and Recreation for the new equipment that we have out there in the Ranch Oaks area. Thank you so much. It was in the newspaper this past Sunday. That's all I have.
So thank you for your comments about the poverty simulation. While I didn't make it to this one, I made one right after I became mayor, and it changed my whole understanding. And I believe because of that, a seminar, I'm not sure what you call it, I've been a better mayor and better able to understand some of the things that all elected officials should participate that once. Thank you. Now, before we get to audience participation, we've got an item that involves audience participation on the agenda, and keeping with the way we've normally done that, I'm going to bring it to the front. Item number 25. Give you just a minute to get there. Item number 25. Consider approving an amendment to Council Policy 1-6, Council Rules of Procedure, updating the meeting time, requiring those who wish to speak during audience participation to be residents of the City of Lawton, and required submission of a request to speak form, establishing limits during audience participation for those who have been removed, clarifies audience members may be called upon during a public hearing, and provides updated formatting of the policy. City Attorney.
So some of the things we're doing here, part of this is updating the meeting time. We'll be going to 6 o'clock in August. I think this is part of that. Because we have the 3-minute limit and the 9-minute total topic limit, we would prefer that to be used by those who are residents of the City of Lawton. And most cities in the state of Oklahoma do restrict audience participation to residents within the borders of the city. And so that's part of this, establishing limits during audience participation for those who have been removed. So if you've been removed for disruption, I believe that's a 90-day, let me find it here, a 90-day bar on being able to speak. Let me make sure that that's correct. Is it? Okay. And it clarifies the audience members who may be called upon during a public hearing. And what it does, it also updates a lot of the formatting of the policy. So it's just bringing in line with what other cities are doing, giving our residents a priority to speak. I've talked to several people who are advocates, like our friend Michael Washington, who comes down from Oklahoma City. If he's got a citizen of Lawton, I talked to him the other day about he may be able to speak depending on the situation, but he was concerned about it. But we have spoken to him, and at the end of the day, it's your call as a presider over the meeting. But that's where we're at on some of these modifications.
So we would need some understanding. Were you through?
Oh, yeah.
We would need some understanding on who would be representative. Certainly an attorney would be legal representative to speak for somebody, but outside that, I think we'd need some legal guidance. What do other cities do?
This is really something that's new just because we have folks who are non-attorneys who advocate for people, and really Mr. Washington's the only person I know of who is a paralegal who can't necessarily represent people, but he does advocate for several folks in our community. And so if that person is also at the podium, I would say that he would be able to speak for them as an advocate. Somebody who's a lawyer obviously would be that, but I think we just case by case look at these people and determine if they're a proper advocate or if they're somebody who's, you know, able to represent somebody or is qualified to do so.
Okay.
Are we ready for a motion?
I am ready for a motion, but I want to clarify with this. Individuals that are not members of the city of Lawton still have communication with the city council. They can send an email or a letter, and it will be distributed to all of the elected officials. And I think maybe the motion ought to contain a floor amendment to that wording, if you're ready to make a motion. Okay, I don't think you're on.
I had it on.
Okay.
I move that we accept that motion with the
Okay,
change.
with my suggested
Right.
amendment? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have discussion or debate? Yes.
John, can we just have one more piece of clarification? If it's a public hearing, like on a D&D, is that, and let's say it's an absentee landowner?
This is just for audience participation. So
Thank you.
public hearings are public hearings. Those will still, anybody's allowed to speak during those. We don't have some of the same restrictions there, but this is just for audience participation. Because we limit the topics, we would prefer that to be residents coming up to have a priority in those topics.
Basically, what you're saying is non-residents are using up residents' time.
Right.
Any comments down here? Okay, it looks like we're ready to vote. Please vote. Motion carries 6-0.
Is that an emergency?
It doesn't need to be an emergency. It's effective immediately. It's not an ordinance.
It's an amendment to council policy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So that policy is effective immediately. Audience participation. Anyone having an item of business to present to the city council that does not appear on the agenda, please come forward at this time. The mayor or council will receive comments from audience members. Council may recommend to the individual or group as to what action they should take, such as referring the situation to a particular department or person at the city offices. Each speaker will have a 3-minute time limit. Each topic will have a 9-minute time limit, and audience participation will be limited to 30 minutes in total. So, David Tyler, you're first up. David's 501 Southwest 77th Lawton resident.
Some of you can go ahead and breathe. I attended city council meeting with every coach from Lawton High football, softball, baseball, and coaches from Central because we were getting overrun with prairie dogs. Within weeks, we had over 24 digging in the outfield at Lawton High baseball. City council directed the parks to take care of. They did a great job. Less than 2 weeks, I picked up at least 24 of the little bodies off the baseball field. That's how many in just a few weeks were on there. On the 29th, I was up mowing at Central. I take care of Central baseball, softball, all the area outside, including Lawton High ball fields and outside those ball fields. On the 29th, there were no prairie dogs anywhere in that area. On the 1st of July, there were 3. I immediately went to the parks, reported it, and then by Wednesday, there were 10 to 12. They were digging along the fence line on the softball field. It's been 8 days. There's over 20 that I counted before I left the fields earlier today. They're all along the fence line on the baseball field. On Sunday, I chased some out on my mower that were in the baseball field. I go up 2, 3, sometimes 4 times a day and just run my mower around the inside fence line trying to keep them from coming in. The vibration in the ground, I think, helps keep them out. But last Tuesday, and you might enjoy this little story. I'm at Lawton High working on the ramp going up to the bathroom at softball field, and I hear the mower outside the outfield fence on the softball field, and I hear, "Hey, hey!" And then it go on, and then I'd hear, "Hey, hey!" And I walked around the concession stand and looked, and Shauna Allen, one of our ladies that's on the grounds crew, was chasing a prairie dog. She was herding it down the fence line, and I started towards my Connex near the auxiliary gym. It came around, it went under my Connex. I met with Mr. Park this morning, great meeting. He sent me a message earlier that he's meeting with the state to get it approved to take care of it. So Parks is doing a great job. But Central softball starts practice Monday. That's why it's imperative we get these.
Thank you. Maybe we can get a report on at the next meeting. We can't do it at this one. At the next meeting on our relocation program, talk about how we're going to step that up, okay? Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Then I have Robert Ratcliffe, 4427 Southwest Parkway Drive. Is that here in Lawton? Okay. Yes, sir.
How you doing? First of all, I'd like to address the number 25 there real quick on your agenda. And I really think it's a shame that you're restricting people from not coming in and talking, even though they live a little bit outside the city limits. Because there's a lot of things here that you all make decisions on that affect people outside of these city limits. I just really think it's a shame that you're restricting that speech, that voice from outside, so y'all don't have to listen to, people talking about things that you don't want to hear. Second thing is about my West Wind responses. I know Mr. John Ratcliffe emailed me some responses to the questions that I had about West Wind. I have been checking into those answers, and a lot of those answers are just outright bogus or straight up lies. I'm not calling you a liar.
All right, we're not going there. If you don't bring the responses, making wild accusations without the details,
I'm not making any
happen.
wild accusations. You're not letting me finish. I've called, for instance, the hospital. The response that I got was that they were in contact with Comanche County Memorial about getting education for our medical workers. Everyone I talked to at the hospital had no idea what I was saying, had no response from West Wind. So that's not any wild accusation there, Mayor. Okay, so I don't appreciate you stopping me.
So I have that right, and so let's just continue. You continue to give backups for what you're accusing.
Okay, I'm not accusing y'all. I'm accusing West Wind. So let's make that clear. And as far as for the containment procedures on what they're doing out there is not falling in line with the response that I was given. Okay? They said that they're going to bring everything in on trucks and bring it inside the facility, and everything was going to be contained inside the facility. I don't see where any of the containment, like at the doors, where they were going to be bringing the trucks through. Right now, everything is still directed to the watershed without any type of containment at all for anything that could escape from that facility. So the watershed out there is still in jeopardy if anything should happen. So Would really like to see. Okay, but everything out there is basically graded away from the facility, and there's nothing stopping any of that water coming from around that facility that is going to be going into the watershed that is pointed directly due south into the farmer's field and the pond that he uses to water his livestock.
Okay, thank you for coming. And Carrie Thomas doesn't live in the city limits, so that won't be allowed to speak. Is there anybody else from the city limits that wishes to come forward during audience participation? Seeing none, I will close audience participation and move on to the consent agenda. The following items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted with one motion. Should discussion be desired on an item, that item will be removed from the consent agenda prior to action and considered separately. Council, I haven't been given any items to be pulled for discussion. Do you have any? And if not, can I get a motion for approval? Have a motion for approval of consent and a second. Please vote. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, item number 18, continue the public hearing and consider adopting a resolution declaring the structures located at 1614 Southwest Jefferson Avenue to be dilapidated pursuant to Section 651 Lawton City Code, ordering the owner to abate the nuisance, authorizing summary abatement, and authorizing the city attorney to commence legal action in district court to abate the nuisance. Josh.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mayor, hold on just a second, Josh. There was a request to speak on item 15, which was approved on the consent agenda. I know that it's been passed, but can the citizen have an opportunity to speak on that item?
We'll deal with it after this agenda.
Okay. Okay.
Josh, go ahead.
Let me figure out how to work this thing again. There you go. All right, so the property is 1614 Southwest Jefferson, has inactive utilities since 2014. This one was originally brought to council on March 26th and was continued till today. We have no active permits on the property. As mentioned before about the soffits and trim damage, there's roof damage on it, hole in the siding. Damaged window trim, as well as more window trim in the back. Damaged roofing and siding. Front of the house has damaged roof. A couple of accessory structures on this property. And another one. Originally posted on the property March 13th, 2024. Any questions?
Seeing none, I will continue the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak on this item, please come forward at this time. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Council?
Josh, is this one that we approved for D&D and there is no action on it, is why we're seeing it again?
I don't believe it was approved for D&D on this
Okay.
one. This one was brought back. We just tabled it.
So, did you ask for this to be continued in March?
I didn't. I think it was Randy. This was a home that they were having previously NAACP meeting and blah, 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 but I've checked, there has not been any improvement in this home within the last
Okay.
90 days or so.
Does that answer your question, Ms. Hankins? Okay. And do we have any motions?
I'm gonna move. Okay. Move to approve a resolution declaring the structure on the property dilapidated public nuisance and authorize the abatement thereof is set forth in the resolution.
Is there a second? Discussion or debate? Please vote. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, we apparently had a speaker on item 15, so we're going to allow the person on item 15 that wanted to speak, Keza, I believe it is, Whitley, Keza Whitley, 7902 Northwest Echo Road. This was an item on panhandling signs. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I no longer wish to speak. There's no point when you've already voted on it.
Brings up item 19. Consider approving an ordinance establishing the number of parking spaces required for stadiums, sports fields, and arenas, with and without fixed seating, and allowing for floor amendments if necessary. Christie.
Good afternoon. Most of you will remember this item came to council on June 25th. It only had a 4-to-1 approval vote, and since this was an ordinance, it needed at least 5 votes. And so this is just a ordinance to establish parking requirements for stadiums, sports fields, and arenas. So I can go into more detail if you'd like, or we can just move forward. It's up to you. I'm here to answer questions.
Okay, so we're basically reconsidering. We've got to start over. Does everybody understand the issue?
I've got some questions.
Okay, ask a question. Ask away.
What was your findings? I wasn't able to pull it up on my. What was the requirement for how many? 1.3?
1.3 is what we are recommending, yes.
Yeah, okay.
The peer cities range from all over the place. The chart, anywhere from 50 or so up to hundreds, so.
Okay. My question, second question is, it's 2024, and we haven't had this problem before.
Because most of the fields are built by the city. And so this is the first time that I know of that a private entity has come in and wanted to build a field. The city, we build it to, whatever we see fit.
Okay, so there hadn't been a problem. It was just something that staff felt like we needed to do because we didn't have it existing. Our peer cities have this because at one time Norman did not.
What was that?
Okay, good. Thanks for pulling that up.
Yeah, peer cities, some of them have them, some of them don't. This all stemmed from a rezoning request. It was brought to the council for rezoning request, and council is the one that directed staff to bring back a code establishing the requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I did have a question. How did you come up with the 1.3 per player on the field? Where did that come from? As I looked at our peer cities, some of them appear to be have to do with an indoor sports arena or something like, or square footage, but we're per player. Why is that?
There could be, like I said, it ranges all over the board. A lot of the peer cities didn't have stuff for outside. They're in the same situation as us. Most of their fields were built by them at the municipality. There's a couple peer cities who do it by occupancy load. And so occupancy load it's kind of related to the player. Occupancy load in an outdoor facility can be a little tougher to tie down. And so we did it by player, just as that's kind of the constant instead of the viewing area. So, that's how we just came up with, players are always going to be the players. You have, at least a car parent. Honestly, I would probably want to do 2+, because I've been a soccer mom for a long, long time and know that, this day and age, you've got 2 or 3 cars coming to a kid.
How are we going to determine and enforce, since it's grass fields? I know we can count the heads of how many are playing, but how are we going to determine? Are we going to have someone actually measure them? Are we going to have to make a requirement that they chalk these lines?
Well, no, it's the sports field. So whatever the sport, you would have participant numbers.
Okay.
So if you put in a soccer field.
And so there's 22 players on a soccer field, 11 per team.
Right.
And that's how we designate.
But how are you going to tell that that's that many places on bare grass ground or dirt ground? It's not, it's not like a parking lot where you have these designated so many places.
The parking lot would be on solid sill surface per code.
Well, now, we have several around town that don't have any hard surface to park on. They park in the grass.
Well, per code, you're required to have a solid steel surface for a parking lot.
Okay, there we go. Now we're getting into what I object to. You know, it reminds me of a story. And I'm not pointing fingers at staff because you've got a job to do, and it's an important job to do. But, you know, the old saying, when the government gets involved, I don't really like to put any more restrictions on people than we have to make things work. So, you know, the old story about the government formed a board to come up with a better horse, and that's how the camel evolved. I don't want to have another camel that we've got to figure out and then start having to hard surface a lot of these soccer fields. They don't have the money to put hard surface there. So this is the thing that bothers me. I haven't seen the study on this, and I don't see how we're going to get around some problems, but anyway, I wanted to say that.
Mr. Harris.
George, I think I can clarify this a little bit. Somebody came to us, there's a grass field, it's just all it is a lot, just east of 38th Street on J?
Yes.
And so the neighbor across the street came and said, hey, these people are going to be parking in my, blocking traffic and all that. So at that time, they were requesting the change of zoning to put in a soccer field. So if they're going to put in a soccer field, we're saying now that they got to put in at least 29 parking spaces, correct?
57 now, according to the new proposed
57,
code.
so.
Hard surface too, right?
Yes, code requires a hard surface. They can always apply for a variance, but, I mean,
But
code
a hard
requires
surface can be
surface.
gravel too, right?
No.
Or, no, it has to be asphalt or concrete.
Yes.
So, and when you look at this, when I drove by and looked at it, because it's right next to my warehouse, absolutely, if we don't require this, there's going to be people blocking that whole neighborhood up. So I'm in favor of this and think it's a good idea.
Okay, Ms. Chapman? Good. My concern is that we've never faced this before, and many cities haven't. What have we put this out of reach for this individual? And where's the happy medium? Because there's certainly a parking issue, especially in that area. I get it.
The applicant has provided a revised site plan showing that they can meet the parking requirements with room to spare.
They can meet the parking
Yes.
requirements. Thank you.
Now, this is only one applicant, correct? So what are we going to do with off of the highway on Highway 7 where we have all these people and there's no hard surface? Up off of Rogers Lane where we have all these fields and there's no hard surface. So how many soccer fields and related type of grass fields and facilities for the kids and the citizens to use are going to go out of business because they can't go out there and spend $200,000 or $300,000 for asphalt? And that's what it'll take.
Are you
The cost for 55 parking places is not cheap. So I'm just saying, are we making a camel? Or are we going to let the horse run? Because we hadn't had this problem before, and we can solve the problem with people parking illegal by having our police chief get a patrolman out there and write tickets, which they're going to have to start doing around some of these schools that are blocking roads. This is a matter of police work. So now we're going to throw all this on the citizen that wants to put in an athletic facility, or in many cases, they're already there. We have them all over town with no hard surface parking.
So is your point that the Big Green soccer facility would be required to have paved parking for all of those fields, many of which aren't used?
Well, that's true too.
Mr. Mayor, wouldn't those not be grandfathered in since it already existed?
No, we're not, I didn't say, if they were building it today, we might very possibly have put that out of place. And what does it do? It provides soccer for our kids. The city of Lawton does not provide soccer places, but we provide the water for the Big Green, so it's a partnership. But I can see how it would have caused a problem. I have mixed emotions on this.
There is a
deal.
variance that they could apply for to go to the Board of Appeals or Board of Adjustments to change the parking service. But city code requires it to be hard service, but there is a variance that they could apply for.
And does that
and go
apply
through
to
that
this applicant as well?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just waiting for.
I'll just review the camel one more time. Are we going to put soccer fields and related programs out of touch for people coming in and wanting to put them in? And are we going to close some that are already there? Because, for example, one of the biggest soccer fields in town on Highway 7, there's not any hard surface parking. That was all given by someone that could afford to do it. But I can assure you that that individual's not going to go out there and spend $200,000-$300,000 to now put in asphalt. So that'll have to be closed unless someone wants to come up with the money to pay for it. So I'm just saying, be careful sometimes what you...
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Christine, will those not be grandfathered in, the existing ones?
Yes.
Thank you.
And once again, the point was not would something existing be grandfathered. The point was that this could keep it from happening if it was an initiative beginning today. Thank you. Is there any other comments? If not, there has to be a motion or no action. Does anybody want to make a motion?
Yes, I would make a motion to approve the ordinance establishing the number of parking spaces required for stadiums, sports fields and arenas, and without fixed seating, with and without fixed seating, allowing for floor minutes as necessary. Read the title only.
I have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Are there any further motions before we move on? Okay, this item's dead. Where does that leave us?
We'll bring the rezoning request back. I think it's the August 13th meeting. That was put on hold when council asked to bring this code section back. So now that that's not going to be a parking requirement for them, we'll move forward with the rezoning and bring it back to council after we give notice.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to business item number 20. Receive a request for the Lawton Fort Sill Chamber of Commerce regarding the allocation of FY 2025 Hotel Motel Tax Fund and take action as deemed necessary. John Michael, are you making a request today or just giving your presentation?
Thank you. We're prepared to do the presentation. That is our understanding. We've kind of come to terms, as I understand it, on a budget number that you guys have come up with. So we do have a presentation.
Okay, just a minute. You're in agreement with the number the city manager is presenting in the next item. Is that correct?
Yep.
And so all you're doing is making a presentation.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Is that appropriate on this agenda item?
Request will probably be in the...
Okay, go.
Okay. So in keeping with our tradition of offering up the annual report here, I will tell you kind of in advance, we prepared a lot of this back in the late June meeting that we were originally on. And so there's a little bit of not an incompleteness for the month of June, but ultimately for our annual report. So you can kind of see here. This is pretty much what the Convention and Visitor Bureau does. We have our tourism component, our military community enhancement, legislative and military affairs, and visitor services. And of course, the Chamber of Commerce continues to operate separately, providing membership services. This is the primary staff for the Convention and Visitor Bureau. Of course, you've got Tosh, Kelly and Dawson are here in the audience with us, and so we have a lot of fun doing the tourism activities with our team there. This is the economic impact of Oklahoma's third largest industry, tourism, just in Comanche County. So for this, and again, with some semi-incompleteness here, you can notice this is through May 1st. So total visitor days for last year, we saw an uptick from 2022. For our total visitor days. Our out-of-state visitors, we are slightly trending down there, but ultimately we do have 2.46 million total visitor days from our report with Data5. Our visitor by state, of course, Texas continues to be the largest tourism source for us, and then of course we have a number of our surrounding states, Kansas, Missouri, and Arkansas, have a pretty solid draw from Florida as well, it appears. So pretty nice diversity here and where we're attracting tourists from. And then, of course, this is our market analysis that we have. So, of course, one of our primary cities, this is outside that 25-mile point of interest. Wichita Falls and, of course, Oklahoma City are one of the biggest draws, and, of course, the DFW and Tulsa area. Of course, my wife's family's from Tulsa, so I'm sure we've probably counting this number somehow. But of course, these are a lot of our biggest cities, and of course, we're drawing all the way into Wichita. You know, that's the Kansas area, of course. And then these are some of the things that CVB did this past year. So, of course, we've focused more in on our digital marketing campaign. So a lot of what we're looking to do here is some of these events and conventions that go on in the city of Lawton. We try to press those out. And, of course, we boost out some of the other events like Wichita Mountain Classic and some of those things that are in this city agreement. We're trying to match that marketing with the actual events that are going on as we go. And so that was a lot of what, you know, we see in our requests here. This is a component of the events that we do, and then of course we've tried to match marketing with that. We have some pretty solid digital clicks and impressions as well. CVB is also, we're working on a new visitor guide, completely digital. Obviously, we still want to do a lot of the gift bag, the bags and things that a lot of these events ask for, but also we want people to have access outside of our community digitally as well for a digital brochure. Then, of course, we highlighted National Travel and Tourism Week. We had the Lieutenant Governor down. We're trying to promote a lot of the tourist attractions in our community. We had a mural scavenger hunt, so you could run around and take pictures in front of a mural, and we handed out a prize for that. And so we're just trying to, you know, get more people talking about the things that we already have in our community to offer. And of course, the Chamber continues its work with Holiday in the Park. We continue to add more displays this year. We had a lot of popularity around the new three-dimensional displays like the boot and hat. We were able to actually loan that particular display out for another community event separately and later on after the fact. And so we just want to be good community partners with our management of Holiday in the Park. And of course, we have the new trackless train that was pretty popular as well. So we're certainly looking to expand on the displays, and we're adding on to vendor spaces as we go forward this year. And then, of course, here's your demographics of the folks that are coming and visiting our community. So you've got your, and all that. And this is something we have from Datafire, of course. One of our popular attractions, of course, is Elmer Thomas Park. We're certainly seeing a lot more interest and activity in that space. And frankly, a lot of the new events that we brought on this year, like the Juneteenth event with the barbecue competition that we had in partnership with the citywide Juneteenth committee, that was out at Elmer Thomas Park. And we're pretty excited about moving a lot of those activities into the park. It's a great space to do a lot of these things. So. Of course, the military community enhancement component of what we do. So obviously we continue the Armed Forces Day Parade. I went on TV and I said we had like 99 entries, and then next thing I knew it was actually 105 entries into the parade this year. So it's continued to be a very popular thing that we did. A lot of folks had a good time, and of course Elmer Thomas Park played host in the after hours after the parade there. And of course we did Fort Sill 101 and 201. Anybody can sign up for that. We tried to promote, that interaction with Fort Sill and get people educated about what Fort Sill it is. If you kind of look right there behind the soldier in the red shorts, that's me helping carry a gurney apparently. So we had a pretty good time with the 201. It was a really cool experience, to see a lot of these basic trainees on and the different stages of their basic training. So. And then, of course, tourism, marketing, and advertising. Our publication is distributed in FY 23-24. Of course, we kicked out 10,000 brochures, just shy of 3,000 business and visitor guides. And, of course, we've reprinted and done a new map of Lawton Fort Sill. We partnered up with the Constitution on that and did some cool advertising sales. So we kind of a win-win for, making sure that people still have access to that, as well as, our businesses get to be promoted and highlighted. And, of course, we have the mural map that is out there, and that was something we used for that scavenger hunt. Of course, we did the DC fly-in, which was pretty well attended. We kind of switched a few things up, but we had a lot of fun with it. We got to add in a tour of the White House, and it's certainly something I would like to add and continue as we go forward with the DC fly-in. And of course, there's the the access to our local delegation that we have keen interest in, and then of course. We did the legislative reception, again, changed the venue up on that one, which was really popular in that sense. We do have a little bit of work in, better timing it with the legislative schedule, if you will. It turns out it's not a great day to have a reception the night that the Appropriations Committee's meeting. And then, of course, in our state advocacy, so there are some wins kind of quietly out there, right? So we with the help of some of our local legislators, we did score reimbursement for the veterans ad valorem tax exemption. So this is something that didn't take away from that exemption. They still get to claim that, but this is a reimbursement to those entities that would otherwise qualify and get those ad valorem dollars. So this is a pretty good win for our health department as well as the career tech and so on. So we're able to pull some of those dollars in with the help of some of our legislators. And then as the chamber, of course, we have a pretty keen interest in a pro-business climate. So we saw through some new incentives, particularly in the cryptocurrency world, and then of course making your play. If you don't know it, actually registering your business in the state of Oklahoma is a big deal in and of itself. You have to change that law from time to time. There's a big these changes in this law and making sure that they got through was a big deal. It's actually important to things like making sure Chesapeake stayed a Oklahoma company instead of going somewhere else. And so there's a lot of these little things that we certainly advocate for, and we look forward to growing and building on the advocacy that we do. And of course, the CVB sponsored events. So this is a lot of the event funding, and this is a lot of, frankly, why our budget ask this year was actually pretty important. These are dollars that we use to help support those hotel room nights and the events that come to our community, right? So of course we had the conference and events. We had 20 events with over 4,100 room nights. 64,000 participants is estimated here. We get a lot of requests in this space, certainly. So, for example, we had one of the new events last year was the Counter UAS Forum that was held at the FISTA. We had a pretty sizable request that we were able to help accommodate in that. And that was an event conducted last October. And so we're certainly always always mindful of new events that can come to the community. Want to support them when we can. Just know as well, though, that we do get a number of requests for pretty limited and precious dollars, if you will. And so we do have the agricultural events. So this is going to include your things like the Wichita Mountain Classic, the Grand National Rodeo, horseman showmanship that'll be going on at the Coliseum here in a couple months. We did that at the beginning of last year. Of course, the Lawton Rangers Rodeo is something we continue to support. And of course, you have your sporting events. And so our total events for 32 events, 5,200 room nights. You can see the total return on investment. So. And then, of course, these are the outcomes that you can see. So we get about $219 million in visitor spend, and then, of course, what's generated through CVB that we know of is about $56 million as well. And of course, this was our budget ask we kind of slapped into this. So this is kind of what you guys get to see, and this is the stuff that we had originally submitted. We'll be modifying this to reflect the 814 that we've agreed upon. But primarily that 850 up there was our previous ask. And a lot of what we were asking for ultimately was more dollars for marketing and more dollars for the events. We were able to compress and actually slightly reduce on the salary side of things, and certainly have taken a keen interest in reducing in some of the administrative expenses. And so kind of even with what we're doing with the 814, we'll have to make some adjustments certainly because it's our primary target to support events and marketing those events in the community. So with that, I would yield for questions, Mr. Mayor.
So this generated through CVB, that's the Convention and Visitors Bureau, funded by hotel motel tax.
Yes, sir.
You're telling me that our investment in CVB, which was less than 811, because part of that's for government and military affairs, was $56 million to the economy.
Yes. These are numbers that we pull from the Oklahoma Tourism Recreation Department. So we can see some of the when we've invested in an activity, then they're able to spin up these investment returns.
Okay, is that all tourism activity, or is that tourism activity activated by the chamber's involvement?
So we believe the total visitor spend is the 219. That's going to be the stuff that's outside of the chamber, and then of course you have just the CVB component is $56 million.
Okay, good. That's a good slide. I like that. Now, can you go back to the one that said 32 events right there? Now, can you tell me how that number of events compares to previous years? Are
wanna
we
say-
increasing? Are we back to where we were
I
pre-COVID?
want to say it's very similar levels. It may have been probably 3 or 4 less. On average, we get about 3 or 4 requests to us for these kinds of events, right? So we have the CVB Advisory Council that actually meets. They make the recommendations. It's all based on the formula that we've spun up for them, and so it's very similar. You know, a lot of the observation that I would make, frankly, is that we've gotten a lot of requests that the dollar figures are much higher and higher. They continue to rise. And I think some of that is, you know, the cost of putting on an event, right? So, for example, the Juneteenth, the barbecue competition and celebration, you know, we went in for $4,000 to up the prize money on that. We think there's actually a legitimate argument around the hotel rooms, especially long term as we grow that. And so there's a component of trying to, you know, invest in new and rising events, and certainly, you know, trying to appropriately handle when we have large events, right? You know, for another example, here's the fire symposium here a couple months ago. Our total investment in that was $10,000, but when you combine chamber dollars and CVB dollars, the CVB component was $7,500, and then once you partner the chamber and the FISTA, actually, we partnered up on $2,500 in that, and so the level of investment that's being asked for and probably required in some cases is increasing. So this again is a big reason why we were actually asking for more dollars for events.
The Fires Conference was amazing, and if I'm not mistaken, that's the largest event in the city, right?
Absolutely.
The Fires
Yeah.
Conference.
Yeah, we were fielding calls the day or two before asking, I mean, all the hotel rooms are booked up, and we were calling a lot of the hotels around town to see if they even had, and a lot of them didn't. You know, this goes back to another issue around Airbnbs that we've probably been seeing a rise in, certainly, and so, you know, there's a lot of people wanting to get here to be at that conference.
Okay, great. And good job on keeping that here, because it could easily go to DC on us.
Yes.
Or somewhere else. Now, the Placer software, I'm not sure what slide reminded me of this. I think it was the one with all the pie charts or something. Keep going back.
There could be 2 charts that I can show you that particular thing on. So
Okay, here's where I'm going. I want to know if you, and I know what we use isn't Placer, but it's a copy of Placer. That right there. Are we measuring visitors from out of town and total number of visitors for all of our events, such as the Freedom Festival? We have the capability, it's my understanding, to know how many people were there and how many were from out of town on Friday night and Saturday night of the Freedom Festival. All of our events, actually, Juneteenth, International Festival, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, are we getting that information and publishing it anywhere, and are we using it to measure our own performance?
We can. I would tell you that we're not in a habit of publishing it per se, and a lot of it's you know, with Datafy, which is what we use, and Placer AI is certainly another alternative. It's much more expensive, but Placer is capable, or excuse me, Datafy is capable of producing. We've geofenced particularly Elmer Thomas Park, so I would be able to pick up on that. We've geofenced the Coliseum, for example, and so we certainly could. And Datafy operates on a slight lag. That's why even like these numbers here, you know, it's probably a couple of weeks. So if you tell me Freedom Festival was last weekend, you know, I don't even know that we actually have that data just yet. But I can probably get it within a month or 2, so certainly.
Okay, I would like to see that, and I bet the city manager would be, I bet everybody would be interested.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're happy to do that, so.
And I think we also need to use it to see if we're up in our game every year, because we can't go backwards. I mean, weather may cause an event going backwards, so we have to go forward some.
Right.
Okay, very good. Other questions? Yes, Kelly. Oh, I'm sorry, Mary Ann had her light on, I'm sorry.
I did have it on
Yeah.
first. Excuse me. John, I was at the Armed Forces Day Parade, and that was great, and we always like to celebrate the heroes and that sort of thing. I wondered what the Chamber did to support Freedom Fest this year. It was outstanding this year, so
Yeah, it was a fantastic event. I mean, and as Noah, it's very much driven by the city. I think we were offered to sponsor it possibly at some point. I mean, from what I can tell, a lot of the support comes from the city side of things, and so I'd have to review exactly how much we contributed, primarily financially into the Freedom Festival. But we know it was a fantastic event. So.
And I've noticed that on the billboard on Gore, the Armed Forces Day Parade is still being advertised, I believe.
Interesting. Thank you. Yeah, we will look into that then.
Thank you. Kelly?
Hey, John, on this slide, how do they gather this detailed information? That's fascinating to me, the how.
Yeah, it's a little. I'd have to probably get with them exactly on how they pull this. I mean, I've seen, we see some of these things like the cars. They're looking at license plates. They pull the license plate to get the state, identification and that sort of thing.
We're not out polling people to get this information. We're gathering it from some other high tech.
Pretty high tech stuff that probably goes over my head as well. So.
Yeah, because it's fascinating. It's, Elmer Thomas Park. Wow, the sports facilities. I mean, to narrow that down is pretty specific. That sort of stuff fascinates me.
Yeah, like I said, we have targets on the Elmer Thomas, the Coliseum. We can target down to the shopping center or the TIF district on 2nd Street, and some of those that we certainly look at. Yeah.
Thank you.
John, this might come up in the next part about what you're requesting this time. Don't need to wait. I noticed on this chart that it shows that you requested 850, but a minute ago you had some adds to that, and it was like 909.
Yes.
So what are you looking at, 909?
Yeah, so the base is going to be like the 850 is the original request. A lot of these are the special event revenues, and then the WMC, these are separate events outside of, these are part of the contract that we have with you guys. To fund on the revenue side.
We proposed 814, so
Yes.
now we're at about 9, so you're at about 80-something thousand increase on what you'd like to get. The extra money, I think we had extra money that we thought we were going to come in on an increase. We don't know for sure yet.
No, the 814 is.
We're solid on the numbers for the last fiscal year, so those numbers aren't going to change.
Okay, so okay, I'll wait till you get to your part. Thank you.
Some of these revenues are things that are the expectations of the chamber raises private dollars to conduct some of these events, like the Wichita Mountain Classic, right? So there's a good component of that goes to the venue fee, but then also we have the other costs, and we raise sponsors ideally to help offset some of these costs, and so some of that is what shows up outside of the 850 here.
What are those special events revenue?
Special event revenue may be like sponsorships, like for Armed Forces Day, sponsorships for various other, maybe the DC fly-in and some of those. That's where some of that may show up.
Mr. Harris.
John, how much does our hotel motel tax generate per night per room? Do you know?
Hotel motel per night per.
Yeah, the hotel motel tax. So we had however many 600,000 bookings.
Thank you, city manager.
Wrong button. 7% is the taxing rate.
Okay, one final comment. Great job helping develop Juneteenth into a weekend event. First year for the barbecue contest, I was proud to be a judge. I ate 25 ribs. Well, I didn't eat them all, but I'm going to tell you, I don't think I could have judged 26 ribs, so I don't know what you're going to do, but it was really successful, and Chambers the one that made that barbecue deal work, so I appreciate that. Any final comments? Okay, no action on this item. Thank you. And we move on to item 21, receive and discuss funding recommendations concerning the city's hotel motel tax fund, and receive direction to adopt, modify, or revise said recommendations concerning city manager's FY 2025 hotel motel tax recommendation expenditure list. And I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca. That's it. You're right.
Mayor and Council.
Rebecca.
Mayor and Council, you have before you our recommendation for the allocation for 2025. If you look, you'll notice that it does have a $200,000 decrease from last year. Other than that, we have had full participation from the recipients and believe this to be a good recommendation for your approval.
Council, do you have questions? Kelly?
I just have one concern, that the fireworks display in Freedom Fest, I think we spent additional money this year along with the drone show, and that leaving it at 100,000 will leave us, will handicap us for next year's Freedom Fest, and would like to see that adjusted.
And we can do that, Councilman Harris, but if whatever we adjust, it's a zero-sum game, so it's got to have to come from someone else. One item I would like to highlight on this list is the museum. They received a $20,000 increase this past year. That's after years of neglect and underfunding, so that may stand out, but that was a purposeful decision based on the state of how things are over there and the lack of funding in the past.
I think it might be appropriate to discuss why we're having these lack of funding issues across the board and don't have the money that we've had, and it's all related to Airbnb, is it not? I think that discussion's appropriate from you.
I think it is, Mayor. I don't know that it's all related to the short-term rental issue. I certainly attribute a lot of the decrease in funding to those rentals. Unfortunately, when the ordinance was passed back in 2021, in my opinion, there's not sufficient enforcement mechanisms in the law. There are some, and I'm not suggesting that we do this, but one of our peers, Norman, for example, one of their consequences for failure of short-term rental owners to remit their taxes is they can throw them in jail. There's others that have very hefty fines associated with lack of payment, and our ordinance doesn't have that. It has, the worst thing that we can do is turn off water. That's the most severe action that we can take against short-term rental. So we may need to consider a change in the ordinance moving forward. In addition to that, we've been relying upon short-term rental operators to self-report. While it's having some success, we collected nearly $54,000 or about $54,000 in hotel motel tax from short-term rental operators this past year, which was far more than we've ever collected in the past. I still think that is a very small fraction in the amount that's out there. I think we have roughly 100 operators registered based on some of the software and internet scraping techniques and web crawlers that we've used. We believe that there's about 400 operating in Lawton. So we're at about a quarter compliance right now. So I think that there's a few options that we're going to have to look at here in order to increase compliance. One, in the future, I'm going to come forward with an agenda item to recommend a different software than we're using now. We're currently using Granicus, which does not do everything that we need it to do. And the other is potentially an increase in the severity of the punishment. So then that would have to go to a vote of the people, since the ordinance was originally approved by the voters of the city of Lawton. And there was one other point that the last thing that we're going to pursue here is, and I'd like not to get into too much depth on the dais, but we are considering legal options against Airbnb and Vrbo and some of these other short-term rental franchise operators that are refusing to collect our hotel motel occupancy tax. So if they were to do it and we would get one payment from the franchise operator, it would certainly be much easier to track than tracking down 400 individual owner operators. So that's another idea that staff has that we're going to bring forward to council in the future and attempt to address this problem for next fiscal year. But for all of those reasons, that reflects the lower projection for FY25.
So I'd like to ask us to give that some priority. My fear is that we've been talking about this hotel motel problem for 3 years that I know of, and I feel like it's too easy to put it off till the first of the year when we're deep in the budget, and I'd like to see us take some action on those as soon as possible. Okay. Now, are there any other discussion on this item, or is there a motion? Motion to approve?
Mayor?
I have a question.
Okay.
I can never get on.
Linda was first.
I was going to make a motion.
I would
What?
like to ask a question.
I was
but
going to
can do
make a
that.
motion.
You can make a motion.
Hold your question. Fair Council, I move to approve the recommendations as presented and direct staff to prepare a resolution finalizing the annual funding allocations and all associated contracts and documents funded by the FY 2025 hotel motel tax distribution as deemed appropriate.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. We do have a second. Discussion or debate?
Question.
Mr. Gill.
Just a question. I want to make sure on this. So we are fixing to vote on the proposed or the requested? I just want to clarify that.
They're proposed.
Okay, the proposed that we've already approved, correct?
No, you would be,
Okay,
they're proposed from staff to council. So if you vote to approve them, then they will be approved.
Right.
They haven't been approved up until this point.
And it's I just want to make
Yes.
sure it was the proposed, which is,
Yeah, this is staff's recommendation. These are proposed figures based on our projection.
So we're voting on the 850 and not the 909?
Neither, 814 for the chamber.
814.
Okay, let's go to this,
814,000.
go to this page.
Okay, I
Okay.
see. Thank you.
And you're voting on the right column down here on the bottom.
Okay, thank you.
Plus on the top, you're voting on the 2025 proposed funding, okay? Are you clear? Everybody clear what they're voting on? More questions, more discussion or debate? Please vote. Motion carries 6-0. Bringing up item 22, consider whether to approve the property owner to continue remodeling the structure located at, is that 337? 337 Southwest 71st Street per section 611108 section D that states after 180 days, the property will go back to city council for specific authorization by the council. Josh.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this property was declared dilapidated March 23rd of 2023. As you see in the previous pictures, it did have fire damage, and they've done some pretty good work getting the roof on, new windows, and the inside of the property of the new framing. The staff does recommend that we do give another 6 months on this property. Any questions?
yeah, that's good.
Council, do you have any questions? Is there a motion
4-8.
for approval or denial?
I make a motion that we approve.
We have a motion for approval from Mr. Gills, or a second? Second. We have a second from Ms. Williams. Discussion or debate? Please vote. Motion carries 6-0. Bringing up item 23, consider directing staff to accept or reject bid on project PR 2309, Elmer Thomas Park Aquatic Center, and take action as deemed necessary. Sneha.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I would like to introduce the team I have here who will be talking to you on this item. On my extreme left, I have J.D. Clark, who is the architect on Aquatic Center project from Gunzi. On my left, I have Scott Vaughn, who is serving as a project manager on this job. And I believe we also have Sam from Miller Tippins Construction Company who bid on this project. And of course, I have Larry Parks from Parks and Rec. So with that, I will just hand over the mic to Scott.
Did you have something you wanted to say?
Well, I was going to introduce our commission. Go ahead.
Again, I'm Scott Vaughn, I'm project manager on this project on your behalf, working for the engineering department. Listening to that presentation about the Convention Visitors Bureau information and having seen it myself, Elmer Thomas is obviously a very important park in this community. This project is apparently a very important project for the community. Normally, we did receive one bid only. It was $2 million over the architect's estimate. Under normal conditions, I would recommend you reject that lone bid. My years of experience in bidding, it's better to have multiple bids, especially, either to confirm that the actual price is in fact higher than was estimated, or hopefully to actually come in, within reason of your estimate. However, the architect, Guernsey, who is represented by J.D. Clark, who's actually the primary architect on the project, makes some pretty salient points for you folks, I believe, to consider before making a decision. So I'll be glad to go ahead and turn this over to JD unless you have questions for me, but certainly I'll be here still if you do have other questions for me.
Thank you, Council. Back when we were hired in the end of October, a point was made to us that the priority was to have this open by May 2025. And so we've been working really hard to get to the point where we could accomplish that. And part of that is starting construction in August, 1st of August. And we've been talking with Miller Tippins, and they believe they can accomplish that if we start at the beginning of August. With that said, if we delay to rebid, we will not be able to make that deadline. And so that was kind of our big overarching reason why we recommending accepting this bid, was that if the goal was really if that was a major priority, then that's going to drive the deal. If that's not a priority, then we could rebid, and we could hope to get lower bids, but we may not. We're in a very competitive market right now. We reached out to over 12 contractors to try to get them to bid. 2 of the contractors we reached out to showed up to this bid. That was Miller Tippins and another one. There was 5 total at the pre-bid meeting. We were hoping that we'd get all 5. We've got 1 bidder instead. And so Miller Tippins been great for the whole pre-bid process. We've worked with them in the past and had a good experience. So with that said, that's why 2 main reasons why we recommend them is the goal to get this thing open by next summer, and there's no guarantee that we would get a lower price if we did rebid it, but we definitely wouldn't be open by next summer if we do rebid. Any questions?
Before we have our Parks and Rec committee speak?
Mayor.
Okay.
Evidently several.
You're on.
Did you get any feedback at all why we only had 1 bid?
So from what we heard from the numerous contractors we reached out to, was most of them said, well, would you guys consider a CM, construction management role? And at this point, City of Lawton has told us they'd prefer not to use CM. And at that point, we wouldn't have been able to get that process in line to accomplish that date. So with that, we eliminated, of the 12 plus contractors, we had 2 that said, you know what, we'll look into it. And one of them, it was Timberlake was the other one, and they backed out about a week after we were going in, just saying we're too busy. We had another contractor that we're working with here in Lawton, CDBL, on McMahon Auditorium. they reached out to me and said they just didn't have the capacity at this time to go after this project as well. And so part of it's just they're too busy. As it's not great for us, it's great for them to be that busy. But
yeah, it's a specialty type construction to begin with. While that might limit you in amounts of different contractors, it still gives you those that specialize in that. Construction management really doesn't change much. It's just another type of any general contractor can do it. So I just wondered if there were any other areas that they were worried about. Might ask the guy that bid it. He didn't have any problem bidding it. You have any problems at all or anything that you saw different?
I think JD said it right.
It's pretty basic from construction standpoint, being, you know, mainly structural concrete, and also prices probably aren't going to go up a great deal in another year. The thing that concerns me is the cost. I mean, you bid a fair bid, but the problem still is we had a budget we tried to meet, and with that budget, we're over it, and then if we do the alternate, we're really over it. So it creates a problem like everyone has called money. So, you know, it's something we need desperately, and it's great for the citizens. But I'll just ask those questions for now, and I'll stop, and we'll go from there. But thank you for your honesty on the response.
Mr. Uyghur.
Yes, I was reading over your bid, and you were speaking about a concern as a contractor. Could you share some of those concerns? One of those was that $2,000 per day fee, not meeting deadline. Could you expound on that just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, that was a consideration at bid day, you know, the liquidated damages. At bid day, you're trying to put together all these bids, and some people you know and some people you don't know, and so you're worried about your risk. You know, after the fact, we've looked at it. You know, there's an alternate for the Lazy River, and we'd added some days there because we were
120.
Worried at the time. But since then, we looked at our bid and our team around us, and we've all agreed that we can do that Lazy River and not need the extra days, and that we're comfortable accepting the $2,000 a day liquidated damages, even though.
You stated also that there was, where possible, you were going to try to save some money, looking to lower that cost. What areas do you think those areas might be in that you could save monies?
Well, one area was that I picked up on immediately was some of the dirt work under the building pad. There was the geotechnical report was too conservative in my opinion. There's some money there. I think that if we haven't really had the chance to work with the architect yet on what items we would pull, but there are things.
We've done this in the past, value engineering with contractors, and so this usually looks like we sit down and we go through a big list of items that we could potentially save money on. We go through and say, is this actually going to be worth it to, you know, reduce the quality or reduce something in those, or the amount of that, and then come back with the cities and work with them and see if, you know, where we can save money. So.
Okay. Well, I know a lot of times in construction projects, when you get those change orders in there, and sometimes those change orders come not from us, but your suppliers, you know, you have to look to alternative sources. Oh, you said you could deliver, now you can't deliver. I've got to meet this deadline, so I have to go over here to this other company now to draw from that maybe you haven't had that close working relationship with.
Correct, yes. And something to note that predominant amount of our work is construction manager at risk. We just happened to see this project and it piqued our interest. But you know, we're going to run this thing just like it was a construction manager at risk job where we're valuing everyone as a team, and we're going to, you know, the goal is to deliver the end product to the city at the best price we can. And
very good. Thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Mayor? I would like to, well, let me begin by saying this aquatic center is something Lawton needs. I think all the council is for this, as is the city. It's something we need to get done. we are out of budget, and we are responsible, and we should be responsible for the dollars that we spend for the city. I'd like to see the architect get with the only bidder that we had and see if we couldn't work a program out where we could go through there, and I'd be happy to work with you. I've done this a few times. And see what your reserves are, what your questions are, what your concerns might be, that we might look at liquidated damages, we might look at soils reports, even be able to make some changes there that might happen to make things better as far as dealing with the soils and what kind of treatment we do. There's a whole list of items that we could work with in a short time and try to see if we couldn't get this price better, but at the same time, of course, the contractor be protected on this. It's something I think that the architect should do. And I know maybe you've already done this. A lot of times if you're over budget, you'll have a meeting with the contractor and say, where can we cut? But I think this is something we could look at, come back at the next council meeting and say, this is what we could do. Maybe have a workshop before the next council meeting and bring it up to one of the committees that we have and try to work something out where we could get that price at least a little bit more agreeable, and then try to get contracts going and get this project going.
So part of the issue we're running into is that earlier I mentioned we needed to start construction by August. That means that we're needing to be under contract in July, and we're expecting to see submittals in the next week or two, and to get that process started. And so it would be great to do the VE item before we got under contract and get all that agreed upon. And instead, we're asking that in good faith that we could see what we could save and try to get you to a price that everyone would be happy at. But I understand your point. It's just
well,
we're trying to get the construction.
My point is, I'm only one vote.
Yeah.
But my point is, if we vote this down today, then it's dead.
Yeah.
So if we miss it by a week or two, that's not going to be very much in the big picture if we get it done. But if we don't go forward with this because it's out of the money and we have to do something else, and the council sees fit to do that, like I said, I'm only one vote. But if the council decides that, no, we're not going to do it, it's too much money, then we've lost the whole program. So it just means everybody needs to get together and get going. And I know we've waited till a long time, and we have to wait till meetings, and we have to wait till the appropriate council time to do it. But this is something that could be worked out. We've got another council meeting this month.
We can always call a special meeting, and I certainly would. I consider this to be a very important community project. Now, I'm not sure we don't have a little bit of a funding problem and can't award this tonight, because it's my understanding we don't have the funds designated for this. Is that correct?
We don't have all of the funds identified.
Okay, do we have enough identified for the pool where we could do this in two pieces?
Without the lazy river and some of the other...
Well, my intent would be include the lazy river, but if we can get through the process by awarding it tonight for the pool, awarding the lazy river in 2 weeks, my guess is that would work, or 4 weeks, whatever it turns out to be. They're not going to start on it till they're close to done with the other deal anyway, I would guess. And so that would be okay. You're telling me we have enough to award the pool if we decide to do that?
We have to be in 10% budget. It doesn't matter.
Can you ask your question? I'm sorry.
I said we have to be within 10% of budget to be able to award it. In other words, if we're over 10%, are we legally bound not to be able to award it?
No.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to hear from our Parks and Rec, Linda Neal.
I am Linda Neal. I do serve as a commissioner on the Parks and Recreation Committee. However, I'm here as a private citizen, and really I don't think you need my input after listening to your comments. They make good sense, but I just want to reiterate the importance of it. We have been so disturbed over not being able to have a municipal pool for our citizens, and I originally was going to tell you how long my family's been involved in this community, and we're out in the state regularly, and the thing we hear so many times is Lawton's quality of life is not what they perceive as being what it should be. And we've made huge strides forward. As you can tell, our streets are improved, our parks are getting better, but we have a long way to go. And this one project, I believe, would be the impetus to give this community some excitement that we have not seen in a very long time. And I understand for sure the importance of getting it in budget. But this timeline is also very critical because, like I say, we have sat there watching our pool not be remedied in any way, shape, or form. We presently have 1,400 people a week enjoying our splash pads and our wading pools, which are very little. So you can just imagine what it would be if we had an aquatic center, including the lazy river, and the people who would come from this part of the state. It's not going to just accommodate the people in our small area. It's going to extend out. And I know I'm preaching to the choir and you don't need to take your time listening, but I do want you to know that as a citizen, we support you and we hope that you will make those good decisions.
All right, thank you for coming. Okay, so if the council were to award this today, is it still possible for you guys to get together and look for some cost-saving measures?
Yes.
It is? Okay.
That was our next step.
All right, very good. So I'm going to, and the city manager's telling me we have the funds available to do the pool,
We have 5 million set aside.
but it's 12, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, but that's what we have earmarked in the CIP.
Well, I don't understand what you're saying. 5 million set aside for the CIP. It sounds like we can't award this until we make a resolution for some of the overage funds to go for this.
Unless we want to scale the project back to.
No. Let me tell you why I don't want to scale it back. Alpha's doing a swimming pool for their 5,000 citizens. They're spending $6 million. That's $1,200 per citizen. If we were to spend $1,200 per citizen for the 77,000 that live off post, that'd be 92 million. So I don't want to scale it back, but it sounds like we've got a little problem that we need to reallocate funds, overage funds, before we can award the contract.
Yeah, I think so.
And then the question becomes, have we got the loan in place to take care of it?
Well, we're working on the loan. Matter of fact, we did some stuff for it today, so it's actively being worked. I know that the senior loan committee for the bank consortium is meeting on Friday, so we should know relatively soon what will transpire there. But I think it's prudent to wait.
Okay, so what can we do here? Direct staff to move forward to get this done as soon as possible, including a special meeting. Excuse me, guys.
And bring back at a special meeting or on the 23rd.
Special meeting or what?
Bring back at the next special meeting or on the regularly scheduled council meeting on the 23rd.
Okay, can somebody make that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion or debate? Please vote. Motion, I think I need one more vote.
That's me because I didn't hear what it was.
Okay, it's direct the staff to put all this together and bring it back as soon as possible, including potentially a special meeting. We got some paperwork issues that have to do with allocating the money in the CIP, the additional income to the CIP.
That's what I was worried about was the money, but also are we going to include in that to have them get together and try to come up with some new numbers? Okay, correct?
We need a vote.
There.
Okay, motion carries 7-0. Now, Scott, do you want to say something?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, we just briefly talked real quickly here, and we will get that VE done, the value engineering completed before the 23rd.
Okay, thank you. And I'm more than happy to call a special meeting. I consider this to be an extremely important community decision, okay? Thank you guys very much. Linda, thank you for coming. Item number 24, consider an ordinance pertaining to vehicles and traffic amending Section 2318-1803, Article 2318, Chapter 23, Lawton City Code 2015, by adding language related to bicycles approaching stop signs, providing for severability, and establishing an effective date. Who's the speaker on this?
I'll take it.
City Attorney.
So our city prosecutor, Alan Rosenbaum, they typically will do just a review of our criminal code, city code. This was something that they, after their review, they wanted to get added. It makes it reflective and match state statute. So what this does is it just adds where bicycles have to obey traffic control devices. It's pretty simple. It puts us in line with state statutes so we can prosecute these the same as anywhere else in the state.
Questions? Motion.
It's an ordinance, so we need to.
Okay.
The reading of the title.
Oh, he was.
She's already started.
Sorry. Oh,
There. I move to approve this ordinance, waive the reading of the ordinance, and read the title only.
And we do have a second now, discussion
sorry,
or
that was
debate.
my fault.
No discussion or debate. Please read the title.
An ordinance pertaining to vehicles and traffic, amending Section 23-18-1803, Article 23-18, Chapter 23, Lawton City Code 2015, pertaining to obedience to traffic control devices by adding language related to bicycles approaching stop signs, providing for severability, and establishing an effective date.
Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. Bringing up item 26. Consider approving an amendment to Council Policy 4-1, preliminary budget deadline and other budget guidance by including a provision that establishes financial support will only be provided to one Juneteenth committee, exclusively the Lawton Fort Sill Citywide Juneteenth Committee. City Manager.
So Mayor and Council, this is just a memorialization of the intent that Council has already expressed, which is to only support one Juneteenth organization. If you can recall, the last couple of years we've had competing requests from various different organizations. So this makes it clear, at least for the time being, that the only organization that Council will financially support with respect to the Juneteenth Committee will be the Lawton Fort Sill Citywide Juneteenth Committee.
And the question I would have, does financial support include facility support? Seems to me that's financial as well.
This is budget guidance. I mean, we can, that's not how I envisioned it when I amended the policy, but there's nothing that says that we can't add language later.
As long as we continue to do anything, we continue to keep the divide apart. Continues to be on us, in my opinion. So whenever a motion is made on this, I'd like to include any support. Ms. Hankins?
Mr. Mayor, I vote that we continue with just the one event as it's stated.
And would you include any support?
Any support.
We do have any support included. Who seconded that? And would you like to, you seconded any support? Okay, discussion or debate? Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. Bringing up staff reports, brief the council on the contract between Emergency Communications Department and County Commissioners of Comanche, Oklahoma. Jessica.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today's purpose of today's brief is to provide an overview of the consolidation agreement between the City of Lawton and the Board of County Commissioners of Comanche County. A little history. The Consolidated Center for Emergency Communications was approved by the Council in September of 2006, but didn't actually go into effect until the following year in June in 2007. The consolidation agreement was to establish a regional communication center. The regional communication center would house call takers and dispatchers, and provide services to the city of Lawton and rural Comanche County for police, fire, and EMS. The agreement also includes some other specifics about the term, operations, budget, and basic services. Today, we answer emergency and non-emergency calls, as well as dispatch them to the most appropriate first responders. The first responders we dispatch for are comprised of 20 volunteer fire departments, 8 law enforcement agencies, which it also includes Comanche County, as well as the Lawton Police Department and the Lawton Fire Department. And I do want to mention for the Lawton Fire Department, there's also 8 stations. So when I talk about some of my numbers, I do specify the fire department as 8 separate stations. Today I'm going to cover just 3 of the main things that I think are important. 1 being operations, 2 technology, and then 3 administrative support. In the agreement, it was outlined that the city of Lawton would be responsible for 80% of the operational budget, and the county would pay the remaining 20%. Additionally, any monies accrued from landline and wireless 911 fees would be turned over to the city of Lawton. There are more details in the agreement, but most of the details were focused on the cost of actually establishing a consolidated center. While the county pays 20%, there are other expenses the county does not pay for or pay a portion of. As an example, IT, GIS services, capital outlay purchases, such as the Tyler purchase that we did citywide, and then also administratively handling over 28 department heads. Additionally, I cannot determine how the percentage was broken out and why the county was only responsible for 20% of our budget. But there are several ways that you can determine a budgetary number, especially with a consolidated center, which is unique for us here in Oklahoma. One of those ways is determining a cost-sharing number by using activity-based number. This method would add up all of the emergency calls, our incoming 10-digit numbers, incidents dispatched, field-initiated calls, and radio transmissions over a 3 to 5 year period, and then dividing that number by participating agencies. The second option would involve averaging the volume of activity across all participating agencies and jurisdictions, and then multiplying that by a cost for call per service. In this slide, you can see some different metrics I've put together to kind of outline that 20% may not be the most appropriate percentage. So, sorry, but some of this is kind of cut off, but on the agency-wise, you'll see that when you compare the 28 agencies versus the Lawton Police Department and then our 8 stations, you can see that 75% of our agencies that we're dispatching for are county entities. This middle one is calls for service. I used calendar year 2023 for this, and so you can see that 76.9% of our calls are City of Lawton. However, Comanche County Police, Comanche County Sheriff's Department, and our rural volunteer fire departments account for 23.1%. Again, a number bigger than our 20%. And then that last one is our radio. That's by minutes that we spend on the radio, the different frequencies. Again, I already mentioned, but we have 20 volunteer fire departments and then 8 municipal, 8 law enforcement agencies, one of being the Comanche County Sheriff's Department. On that, you can see 64.6 of that, of our percentage, is for the City of Lawton. However, 35.4 of that is for Comanche County. So again, another number that's greater than that 20%. So I know I kind of throw about different metrics out there. Another interesting thing is our technology. One of the areas that changes consistently for our department is our technology. In this agreement, there is no mention of how technology advancements should be implemented. As an example, in 2020, the computer-aided dispatch, what we refer to as our CAD system, was upgraded. This upgrade impacted all of our operations and how we process, document work, and maintain first responder statuses, just to name a few. We create calls for service, notate radio traffic, and update information through the CAD. Some of the capabilities we have are only utilized by the city. For example, as shown on this slide above, a dispatcher can see where any unit or apparatus is at any given time. So this is a real-time picture that I took from our CAD system. So you can see there, when you see LFD Engine 5, that's just an acronym for the Lawton Fire Departments, but we can see where Engine 5 is at. As an example, we can see where the Lawton Police Officer Delta 12 is sitting at. That cone right there is to tell you that there is a road that's either blocked off for some reason. It could be done by streets, or maybe if we had a bad storm and that area is blocked off. And then the phones on there are showing you where our calls are happening. So as we're taking those incoming calls, staff can actually see big picture-wise what is actually transpiring in the city of Lawton only. For the county, a dispatcher cannot see where an officer or a deputy or a fire truck is coming from when dispatched to a call. County officers, deputies, and firefighters are blind to what is transpiring in their community because they only know they have a call when we make them aware of it by radio or phone. Earlier this year, a quote was provided to the county to purchase software licensing that would provide them with an unlimited site license for the rural police departments and the volunteer fire departments. This would elevate them to the same technology we use today for the Lawton Police Department and Fire Department. With the number of agencies we dispatch for, having all entities on the same system would improve efficiency and address calls with urgency. Administrative support. This agreement outlines that we will provide dispatching services for the county sheriff's department, police departments within the various municipalities within the county, rural, and municipal fire departments, ambulance and medical services, county civil defense services, and other emergency services throughout the county. The first issue is that each of these agencies operate in their own silo. Their procedures, their policies, their rules are all different. It's unrealistic to teach the variances to staff and for them to memorize these differences for 28 different agencies. The CAD system is something we utilize for responses, but it cannot be broken out into 28 different policies. There are also lots of coordination behind the scenes that transpires in any given shift. Some of these activities are redundant in that we have to repeat locations, warrant information, suspect information, etc., instead of the officers, deputies, or even the responding firefighters having this information right at their fingertips. In addition to the administrative work processes that could be streamlined, there are dozens of tasks that transpire, again, on any shift, on any given day. A review and update to this agreement could be of great value. There's an opportunity to collaborate with another entity in our community and improve efficiencies, not just for the staff, but for our citizens. Standardized operating procedures would also be beneficial. It's important to have aligned values and goals and a clear mission. It's also important that both parties are clear on the expectations of a consolidated center like ours. In 2022, we established the NOVAC Committee. This was recommendation number 89, and the purpose of this was to create a multi-jurisdictional committee to participate and provide feedback or express any issues they have encountered. If we are all for the citizen, we should agree on improvements that improve transparency, efficiency, and the pursuit of excellence. Any questions?
So is your point that while we have an 80-20 funding split, the time spent, can you go back to that? The time spent? Because to me, it all revolves around time as our biggest expense, I would assume. And you're telling me with this radio number, that seems to me to be time spent on the radio with outside agencies is 35.4. Is that your point?
Yes, that's one of the metrics that I wanted to convey today, that it's greater than the 20%. Now that's just a radio metric, Mayor. You know, that's based on minutes. I can actually tell you that we spent 641,414 minutes on the radio in calendar year 2023. And of that, for the county, it was over 227,000, giving you that 35.4%.
That's pretty accurate.
So I know this isn't an action item, but I'm wondering what you're wanting from us. Is this, are you wanting an agenda item later for direction for the city manager to get with the county commissioners on the disparity, or what?
Well, I think that may be helpful. The other thing that Jessica hit on that's really disappointing is the fact that we have, what's the name of the software, Jessica?
It's called Tyler New World.
Yes.
Specifically, they just recently changed the names, but it was Crew Force and Shield Force. Crew Force is used for the fire department, Shield Force is used for the police departments.
And so we've already paid for the subscription to that software, and we were willing to extend to all of these volunteer fire departments and all of these different police departments within the county licenses for this software, so we could all be on the same operating picture and we could provide better emergency services to our citizens. And although the county has ARPA money available to pay for these licenses, they're not willing to do so. And to me, sitting from my vantage point, seeing the delivery of these services to outside of our city, that's pretty hard to justify.
Yeah.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's very hard to justify. So this is not an action item. Do you need, you want an action item on the next agenda so you can get the support of the council?
I do.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions? Yes.
Yeah, just for clarity, when we talk county, we're talking all the small towns, their fire departments,
Yes, sir.
their police departments, and volunteer whatnot that the citizens of Lawton and our tax base is supporting. More than 20% was basically what you were saying.
Yes, so we support the Comanche County Sheriff's Department, and then we also support Cache, Chattanooga, Elgin, Fletcher, Geronimo, Medicine Park, and Sterling. They all have established municipal police departments within Comanche County. So.
And with that said, as just mentioned, there's kind of a disjoint communication process, not just a monetary thing, but in the efficiency and safety of citizens, even jeopardizing of our citizens, because these other departments aren't participating in that software, so they can see where everybody's at and be on the same page. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's a very dated agreement, and that's why I wanted to point out it doesn't talk about, advances in technology. And as you guys know, because you guys approve these things day in and day out, we're constantly trying to improve, right? We're always trying to look for ways to be more efficient, quicker, faster, doing everything we can for the citizen.
Safety, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I had a question.
Yes, Councilman.
All these different cities that you just went over,
Yes, sir.
have they all been contacted and they all said no, including our sheriff's department?
Well, that's the kind of unique thing is our agreement is only with the board of the county commissioners of Comanche County.
Okay.
And so I know that they're interested. The NOVAC committee that we have had several police chiefs attend those meetings, and they're all very interested. But if you break out the price per agency, it is a lot more costly for them. And a lot of them just said they could not afford to do something like that. For instance, the newest contract, actually have that number, I believe is about roughly $177,000. A little over $100,000 is just for the police agency softwares, and the other part of that is for our Comanche County volunteer fire departments and EMS. Okay. So the numbers are very, very drastic.
Okay. This is a non-action item?
Yes,
so
sir, it's just a report.
I couldn't make a recommendation to staff. Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Harris?
Okay, are we good? Oh,
Just
Mr.
one more question. Where would these agencies be? What would happen if we didn't have this agreement with them? What would they have to do then?
Well, that would be a thing I would have to get with legal on. I know previously we were given an opinion that if for some reason the county decided that they just wanted to break away services, that potentially there could be an injunction on that. The agreement today, there is a 90-day give notice, but that's not something I would definitely encourage at all. I think the services we provide far exceed even what our neighboring agencies are doing. we're one of two, 911 centers in all of Oklahoma that trains our staff to a very, very high level. We don't just certify them in a basic telecommunicator course, but we also certify them in internationally recognized protocols, police, fire, EMS. The things that we're doing, I don't think we can compare our agency. I like to say that we are one of the best, if not the best, in the state of Oklahoma, not just amongst our peer cities.
Hey, that's our goal.
And
Thank you.
Oh, it looks like
Jared.
I heard you going.
I just want to add in, that would even be worse. It would be more disjointed if we were to break apart for the safety of the responders. It's already bad enough that we're not on the same technology. If we separate dispatch centers, it would be worse for our citizens and for our responders.
Okay, so we'll have an item on the next agenda. My thought is you just go ahead and initiate that because they're going to hear about it before the sun sets anyway. So it's going to be clear the council's behind you in that discussion, okay?
Behind the city manager.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
Okay, we're ready to move on? 28.
Thank you, Jessica.
Provide City Council with an update on FY 2023 and FY 2024 audit process. Rebecca.
She's back.
I am pleased to share with you that once again, we're on track for the 2023 date of handing over a trial balance to the next step of auditors on August 1st. That's 17 working days from today.
So, okay, so thank you. That's awesome. You hand that over to them on August 1, and what happens then?
Crawford and Associates will do their magic doing all of the financials. They will turn them over. I believe it will be within 2 weeks to our auditors, Forvis, who will then come on site in August to the end of August and have a week worth of drilling us and hopefully be able to complete their audit by October 1. That is our goal. Can I share with you more good news, Mayor?
Okay, and at that point, you're saying October 1, you think we're going to turn it in to the state?
That is correct.
That's good.
I'm a little bit shocked. Good shot. Any comments or questions?
There's more good news.
There's more, Mayor. Our fiscal year for 24 ended June 30th. We're on track. We are not late. We have a signed agreement with our auditors to begin that audit October 1st. If we complete 2023 as fashioned, we are on time for 2024. On target. And I have to tell you, the staff is working overtime and double time and backwards and upside down time to see that this happens. So I want them to have all of the recognition for doing that because they're working for you and for the citizens.
If you're able to pull this off, we're going to officially rate this as some kind of wonderful. Okay?
Indeed it is.
All right. Any final comments? Thank you, Rebecca. Motion for executive session?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Harris.
Yes.
Chapman. Gill. Hampton. Uyghur. Williams.
Yes.
Hankins.
Okay, can I have a motion to return from executive session? Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Chapman? Gill? Hampton? Uyghur? Williams?
Here.
Hankins? Harris?
Executive session item number 29, John.
29, pursuant to Section 307B.1, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the council convened an executive session to review the employment of John Ratliff as city manager, and there is no action to take in session? Nope.
No action.
Okay.
Item number 30, John.
Pursuant to Section 307B.4, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, we convened an executive session to discuss pending action with Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality concerning a notice of violation issued by ODEQ to the city on February 14, 2024 in relation to the municipal solid waste landfill and the fiscal year 22 and 23 financial assurance mechanism update, the local government tests, and I believe we do have action to take in session.
Yes, we do. I move to authorize the city to enter into a consent order with the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality. Number one, requiring the city to establish and submit to DEQ an alternative financial assurance mechanism in the amount of the currently approved cost estimates approved on April 18, 2024, no later than October 31st, 2024. And number two, assessing a penalty of $1,400 with DEQ agreeing to defer payment pending city's timely completion of the task by October 31st, 2024 due date. And number three, providing that in the event the city does not complete the task by the due date, city shall also pay stipulated penalties in the amount of $1,500 per day on each day of noncompliance following the October 31st, 2024 due date.
Have a motion, is there a second? Second. We do have a second. Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. Do I have a motion for adjournment? Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Hampton? Uyghur? Williams?
Yes.
Hankins? Harris? Chapman? Gill?